Born in Iowa City in 1938, they moved to Miami when they were 3 years old because Janet's father got a job working with Eastern Airlines. He was a big airplane guy. She learned how to skydive at 16 years old. Then she ended up getting her pilot's license at 17. She had a passion for airplanes and speed, but given the times, she couldn't work for any airliner or the military, so she decided to do something harder. And she got an aero engineering degree. In 1953, the dean of Michigan University said that if a woman isn't smart enough to know that she's supposed to catch a husband, she's not smart enough to come to Michigan University. So obviously, Janet goes to Michigan University. She graduates with honors with an aero engineering degree. She gets a job that pays more than most men at that time. She lives a success. The video can end right now. But she followed her passion. Her passion led her to buy an ice old Jaguar. To be specific, she bought the Cruella de Vil. She bought the Jaguar XK40, one of the most beautiful cars that have ever been thought of ever. And she starts going to small car meets, small little things, doing things and racing against people, one-on-one, small, just for fun. Then she learns that she can start to soup up her car. And every cent that she makes goes into her baby, to make it better, to follow her passion. Until one day, she quits her job. She began professionally racing in her Jaguar in 1963, and by 1972, she was a full-time racer, winning two 12 Hours of Sebring races, one of the biggest sports car races in the world. And she did all of this with basically no money, no job, no husband, no nothing. All on herself, hard working. But the pay that they gave her in these races back then wasn't enough to pay the bills, and eventually her racing career was coming to an end. Until Rolla Volstad, a low-income team owner with a great mind and a lot of passion. Like great mind, like a really, really great mind. Like, you ever thought about who invented the rear-engine Indy car? This guy. He offered her a seat in the Indy 500, the biggest race in the world. But before publicly announcing it, he wanted to have her do a test run in the car to make sure she can do it. And the problem was that she had broken her ankle in two just days before. At least that would be a problem for me. For her, in her words, she goes, "There was no problem. You just lay in a bathtub for a while till the cast gets soft and you can take it right out." I would say, but what about the pain? Apparently we are on different levels of that dog in us. So the test still goes great, even after all that. Obviously, she's tougher than the average bear, literally. But after it goes public, the outcry from her fellow drivers was hideous. Even defending IndyCar champion Bobby Unser was saying things like the only reason she's got this ride is because she's a woman. Now, if you ask me, after all the adversity she got and opportunities she missed, now she's saying she got this opportunity because she's a woman? It's wild. It's a wild world we got here. This wasn't the first sexist controversy in IndyCar that year either. Arlene Hiss became the first woman to ever compete in an IndyCar race in the first race of the season in Phoenix. But the problem was she got black flagged halfway through the race because the officials wanted to check on her and make sure she wasn't tired. By the time the Indy 500 rolled around, Volstead didn't have enough funds to put together a decent car for her. By decent, I mean even close to qualifying for the race. And when all the drivers saw her time on the leaderboard, they all said, "We were right. She can't do it." AJ Foyt, one of the greatest IndyCar drivers of all time. No, one of the greatest drivers ever of all time. He sees what's happening to this girl, this woman, and he doesn't like it. So he takes his car, his backup car, and goes, "Drive this. Prove it to everybody. I'm going to give you a top car. Let's see how you do." And she runs a 188-mile-an-hour lap. And she does well enough to qualify. But unfortunately, even though she was faster than a lot of guys and got more media attention than all the drivers put together, she still couldn't find sponsorship to pay for AJ Foyt's backup car. But I'm not sure if you know, there's this other big race that happens on the same day as the Indy 500. It's time to go stock car racing, boys. Fine, you don't want me a little fancy boy elitist Indy 500? That's cool. I'll get into a car that's 3,800 pounds, no power steering, the same cars that you Indy boys can't do, and I'll do it for 100 more miles than what you're going to do. Humpty Wheeler, owner of SMI, owner of Charlotte Motor Speedway, he sees what's happening. He knows that he has a race, the World 600, that's happening on the same day as the Indy 500, and he sees the opportunity. He sees it. So he gets her a car, he gets her a sponsor, he gets her a spot in the World 600. When the green flag drops, she finds herself qualified behind two little guys, Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott. Now listen, if that was me, I'd be pretty nervous. Clearly, we've already established she got that dog in her, so she's not nervous at all. In fact, she's pretty much a gangster because 400 laps into the race, 4 hours into the race, her exhaust pipes breaks and the inside of the car starts filling with carbon monoxide. That usually kills people. Instead, she goes to the pits after telling her team what to do, what's going on, and they try to replace her with a relief driver. She shoos the driver away, tells him, "Get me new tires. I'm not getting out of this car, boy." She ends up finishing the race in 15th, beating other drivers named Bobby Isaac, Dick Trickle, Richard Childress, Dale Earnhardt, and Bill Elliott. The sponsors loved her. Everything was a success. Now it's time for Daytona. In the 1977 Daytona 500, she got a nice Kelly Girl sponsorship and ended up finishing 12th in the Daytona 500 after blowing an engine with 10 laps to go. She ended up finishing 6th at the Bristol race, which is the highest finish ever by a woman in NASCAR to this day. And she finished the year 23 in points, even though she missed over 10 races. But she never took her eyes off the goal. And in 1977, she accomplished her goal, becoming the first woman to ever qualify for the Indianapolis 500. Now, she says she's never really considered herself a feminist leader until the parade before the race, where she noticed that the men that weren't booing her usually had daughters on their shoulders, and the men would go, "Look, look, there's Janet Guthrie, there's Janet Guthrie," telling their daughters. And she realized that she wasn't a role model to all these little girls growing up. Unfortunately, she did not finish this race. She finished 23rd with a blown engine and still hadn't yet proven to her peers that she deserves the race with the men. But she'll be back next year. The very next year, she would get sponsorship from Texaco and ended up building her own team full of NASCAR crew chiefs and pit crews and crew guys that build her a better car than she has ever had before. She easily qualifies for the Indy 500 and has the best chance of winning the biggest race that she's ever had in her life until she plays in a charity tennis match and breaks her wrist. Most people would forfeit the race. Not Janet. Janet injects herself with painkillers so she can hide how much pain she is during the pre-race so she could sneak past officials and still get in the race. Now listen, I'm not sure you understand how important your wrist is when you're driving a car, but when you have to go down a shift, that hurts. So what Janet had to do was go around her body with her offhand and learn how to shift like that. With her broken wrist, with her team that she's paying for, with her own money, with her own car, she brings it home 9th. She finishes top 10 in the Indianapolis 500. After the race, the reporter asked her, "Do you think that this proves you can race with the men now?" She goes, "Jim, I was doing it with one hand." Oh yeah, by the way, she was doing all this IndyCar stuff. She was only allowed to race one race a year because that's what the sponsorship allowed her. Imagine how good she would have been if she had a decent sponsor. And in the end of her career, that's what brought it to an end. She couldn't find enough sponsors, even though she was faster, more marketable, had more media attention, did everything you needed to do. She was just too early. It wasn't her time yet. Alright, I'm going to be putting out a lot more long-form videos like these. I hope you guys like it. Follow me in the Daily Downforce for more. If you're still here, thank you.